So why I come up with Outcast was because Alabama, and when I say Alabama, I'm talking South Alabama. I'm talking about 30 minutes from the line, from the Florida line. So we got sandy soil. Our deer don't get as big as, they may get up north. And you don't hear many people coming to Alabama to hunt monster deer. So,
South of the Black Belt.
Right. So, that's why I say we're outcasts, we're deer hunters. We do the best we can. We try to shoot the biggest we can. We try to shoot, what we can and what we got here in Alabama. But, we're not one of them states that everybody just comes to, to shoot big deer. So that's why I say we're outcasts,
I like it because a lot of the deer hunting content or any hunting content is all Midwest related.
That's right.
Or a vast majority of it.
Exactly.
Which applies nothing to us.
That's right.
So, as we go forward, we can share hunting stories and tactics, how we killed deer or turkeys, and
in the element that we're given here in South Alabama.
That's right. And then maybe people can learn from that. And if nothing else, what I'm really excited about is recording these stories to look back on and relive those moments.
Absolutely.
I think about Dawson and Danny.
Mm-hmm.
And
my kid, yeah.
I was about to say, I was wondering if I could make a joke about it. However many kids Talon has.
One day.
Yeah. I have. I probably got a few out there somewhere. I ain't no telling. And that poor kid, we'll pray for him.
All right, so that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're calling ourselves Outcasts and recording this podcast. And we kind of gave an idea of what's to come with future podcasts.
Right.
So do you want to dive into the story of Kicker?
We can.
Let's go ahead.
Well,
we can always circle back to anything else that we forgot.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, to this day, we have had 2 shooter bucks on the property that we're hunting this year, which we've had this for the past 2 years, I believe. So we've got 2 shooter bucks as of right now.
And when you say we, you mean you and Talon. I've never.
Yeah, me, Talon.
Yeah,
and
well,
Dad.
I've never been.
More of a
Dad,
I've never
really.
set foot on the place except help you drag out a deer one time.
Right.
But
Also,
okay.
our shooter bucks ain't no 220 class bucks.
They're definitely not 200
No.
class bucks. We're talking maybe pushing high 120s, maybe low 130s.
I was about to say 120 around here is really good.
Oh, yeah.
In my
130, a 130 class deer around here makes the headlines.
Yes,
we do have 160 class deer, but when you kill a 160 class deer, that is
very rare.
a monster.
That's the ones that
here.
you put in the newspaper.
Absolutely. That picture goes all over the place around our small towns.
South of the Black Belt.
Yeah.
South of the Black Belt.
Well,
You can get up in the Black Belt and kill something a little big.
Maybe, yeah. But still, they may be a little more, they may kill a few more up there. But even in the Black Belt in South Alabama, a 160 class deer is a monster. We're not talking 200 class. So when we say 130 class deer, that's absolutely a trophy for me, any of us sitting here, and anybody really in Alabama. Anybody would be excited to kill one of them. So, so we've got 2 shooter bucks as of right now on our property. So my dad's camera is actually where I had my camera to start with, where I killed Kicker at. But my dad's camera was sitting there, and he got pictures of Kicker and another 8-point, which we call the Big 8. And I was actually after the Big 8 because we got more pictures of him early season. But later down the road, we lost Big 8. Big 8 hadn't been back. So we don't know where he's been. We hadn't seen him since. So Dad, one day, I was doing my thing, and Dad sent a picture of Kicker. And Dad said, we may have something here. And I thought to myself, absolutely, especially during bow season. So I killed Kicker on November 1st. When he sent me that picture, I thought, I've got to get in the woods as soon as possible. So that's what I did. Every day after work, I would get in the woods, whether it be a little late, early, whatever it may be. And then there for a little while, we had some hot weather. I still got in the deer stand. I got in the deer stand every day that I could. And when I got in there, the wind may be good, may not be good.
So let's pause right there because I have a question, and this is something I've been thinking about. I have an opinion on it, but I want to see what you say. You said it had been hot weather. And while you were hunting the hot weather, were you still seeing movement? Do you think that hurt the movement?
I saw.
Did you feel like you were wasting your time going during the hot weather?
I mean, I, as a hunter, and what we know, or what we think as a hunter, is cold weather gets the deer moving. But I really didn't see a slowdown in movement of deer. I still saw small bucks. I still saw does come out, the same does that we always get pictures of. They came out. The small bucks would come out from time to time. But no movement kind of back. I mean, no, not really.
And then the other thing is this. So we haven't really told each other these stories that we want to tell on the podcast. We've been waiting till now to share it so that we could ask the questions, as they came to our mind. What was the, not landscape, what's the word I'm trying to think of? What was the area like that you were hunting? Was it all pines? Was it all hardwoods?
It's
Was
mostly
it open field?
Mostly pines. We got some hardwood fingers that go out through there. I think the biggest, I guess you could say, advantage or the biggest thing that I like the most on the property is there's a river that butts up to our property, and of course deer stay on that river all the time. And there's hardwoods that butts up to that river. Mostly all pine trees.
Are you just on the edge of them?
To a certain extent. So there's a power line that runs through the pine trees. And most everybody around here, if they have a power line on their property, they utilize that power line for a food plot or any kind of food source of any type. So I was using that power line. Now I do like to sit off of the power line or off of the edge of a field, just because in my experience, years of deer hunting, bucks, most of your big bucks are going to stay in screened areas. They're going to stay hidden most of the time. At night, they'll come out into the fields because they feel safer, I'm assuming. But
unless you're chancing flowers and they just come to you.
Yeah, like all the stinking time.
yeah, I wish.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
you're
I
at
was
a power
sitting on the
line,
edge of a
goodness.
power line.
Okay.
Yes, I was sitting on the edge of a power line, and the woods around that is pretty thick. So you got big pine trees, just big enough that I could hang in it with my saddle. They're not huge pine trees, but they're just big enough to set a saddle in. Very little cover for me though.
Oh yeah, that's right. Was this your first hunt with a saddle?
Yes.
So first hunt with a saddle.
First hunt
you
with
killed
a saddle.
This deer.
First hunt with my brand new bow, my Phase 4, and I
Hashtag guided.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
Hey, man. Yeah.
No doubt.
A lot of first, not the first deer, but a lot of first on this hunt. My first hunt out of the saddle. Well, I say my first hunt out of the saddle. Not really my first hunt out of the saddle, but my first deer killed out of a saddle. Because I think I set on kicker. I think I set on kicker 4 days before I actually shot kicker. I think we've got 3 trail cam pictures of him coming out 3 days in a row. But back to my story as to when Dad sent me the picture of kicker, we prematurely named kicker.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
I guess the way the angle or the angle of how the deer was standing, he looked like he had a kicker. So we just all of a sudden hollered, we gonna call him kicker. Well,
No kicker on this deer.
yeah, there is no kicker on this deer. Cool story we'll get into later. But after we killed the deer, we found something else out that we didn't know. But yeah, when Dad sent that picture, I thought to myself, I have to get in the woods as soon as possible, and I've got to get in there as much as possible. One, I was about to have a little baby girl. She was due November 30th,
And you killed him in
and I
November.
killed him on November 1st, and she came on November 6th. So I killed him just in time.
Yeah.
But we got 3 pictures of kicker on trail cam pictures, and so I got off into the woods as much as possible, and I watched the forecast. There was some cold weather coming. I knew at that point in time, and that was the 4 days that I set. I think the cold weather started coming in, and it was probably 50-something degrees the first morning. Then we sit, and as I kept going throughout the week, it got down into the 30s. So I knew if I have a chance, I felt like, now I could have killed him at 80-degree weather. I don't know. I mean, I don't.
Just more of a chance he was gonna move
I
early.
just felt like as a hunter and being out there, I felt like, well, cold weather is when the deer are going to move. So I really hit it hard them 4 days. I got in there. The day I actually killed Kicker actually was the worst day of hunting that I've ever been a part of until the very end, you know, when I sent one through him. But so when I got there, there's a bobcat that stays down there all the time. The bobcat was sitting at the gate. I was a little late. I was a little aggravated because I got off work. I took off down there, and I was a little late getting there. I get to the gate, and there's a bobcat sitting at the gate. Yeah, absolutely.
gate.
And I'm sitting there thinking, you know, is this a sign? I'm fixing to leave.
Yeah.
But I sat in, and so I actually got out of the truck, went to the gate, and the bobcat watched me walk towards the gate. I opened the gate. Now, I say sitting at the gate. The bobcat wasn't sitting directly at the gate, but he was kind of, you know, he was 40, 50, 60 yards behind the gate, whatever it may have been. But he was just sitting in the road behind the gate. And I actually unlocked the gate, opened the gate, threw the chains on the ground, went back to my truck, and he was still sitting there. So I actually tried to get my bow out of the back seat and throw my release on. As soon as I got my release on, I looked up from putting my release on. The bobcat was nowhere to be found. I was going to try to send one through him, but didn't get the opportunity. So I got down there, and I got in my deer stand probably about 4 o'clock, 4:05, something like that, I believe it was. When I was walking to my deer stand, there were 2 does already out in the power lines. They saw me, of course. The wind was howling. I think when I checked, it was 15. I think it was a 15-mile-an-hour wind that day, which was terrible. And the wind was not in my favor. It was swirling. To start with, it was in my favor, but it was swirling. When I got down on that power line, the wind was just everywhere. So when I was walking in, the 2 does that saw me, they took off running back towards the river, which I knew Kicker was coming from the river, according to the trail cam pics that we got. Mm-hmm. And so when the does ran towards the river, they were blowing. Seemed like for an eternity, but probably 2 or 3 minutes, they just constantly blew. So I went ahead. I got up in my stand and
Whatever. This ain't a real hunt. Guys blowing.
Hey, it gets better.
Does
It gets better.
blowing him out of the tree
What kind
stand,
of
stuff
hunter
like
is he
that.
that deer
Bobcat.
blowing at
Yeah, bobcat waiting at the
He
gate.
should have snuck in there
Yeah,
undetected.
no, that's ridiculous. Yeah,
Hey,
all right.
I'm telling you, it gets better than that. So I get in the deer stand, and I'm sitting there. I'm thinking to myself, just like any other hunter, I feel like would think to themselves, is like,
Go home.
You know, yeah, like, is it even worth it anymore?
Forget
Because
this.
they're still blowing. And I'm in my deer stand now, and they're blowing down there where I think he's coming from. Now, he could be anywhere, and that's one thing that wasn't running through my mind at the time. The only thing running through my mind is that's the direction he comes from, then that's the direction they're blowing in. He's probably gone. So, anyways, I sit there anyways, and probably about 30 minutes after they stopped blowing, everything started to calm down except for the wind. The wind was still howling. I caught a glimpse out of something coming down the power line coming from the north, and I was facing south in my saddle. So coming from the north, I caught a glimpse of something running down the power line towards me. So, of course, I kind of slowly cut my eyes over there, and it's a small 7-point that I've seen multiple times. I think I videoed one of the small little 7-points and sent it to you.
Yeah.
I had him at like 15 yards.
Yeah.
Several times he come out, but he come running down the power line, and he got right there at me, parallel. And when he got parallel to me, I don't know if it got strong enough. I don't know if my scent was strong enough or what. I don't know how he knew that I was there, or even I don't know if he knew I was there. Maybe he just was looking in a. Maybe he wasn't looking at me, but he was looking in my direction. I thought he was looking at me. So he come and he's running down the power line. He gets parallel with me, and I'm looking at him, and he looks dead at me, turns around, wheels out of there, and he goes towards the river, blowing.
In the same direction that the
As the
does
same
went?
direction as the does.
And how long after this? Go ahead.
That's 30 minutes after the does had got done
No,
blowing.
I'm talking
So
about how long you'll tell, I guess, of how long the deer was between the blow of that deer and when he showed up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was 30 minutes, so that was probably 4:30, 4:35, something like that.
Here's a question I have for you. Were they running buddies?
I did get I think out of the 3 pictures we got of Kicker on the trail cam, I believe he was in
there?
1 or 2 of them, yeah.
So when you saw this small 7-point, did you think, all right, he's on the way?
To be honest, the way he was acting, I did, because he come in running. When he come in running, the first thing that I thought was to look behind him, because the bucks this time of the year are all running together. They're still bachelor groups, you know. So any buck that came in there, I was looking for something else behind it or to come in with it. So, yeah, I did think that for a second. But, you know, thinking back, I'm glad that he was by himself. But, you know, he come in, it looked like he looked dead at me. And anyways, he wheeled, he got out of there and went to blowing. Same place, down there at the river. Same place Kicker comes from. And
your rage level at this point.
Oh, yeah, I'm hot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd have been
Wasting
headed
my
down the
time.
stand.
Oh, yeah.
I'd have been doing
I was definitely like, forget this. You know, this is a bust. This is not going to work out. So I thought to myself, too, though. I was like, well, I'm already here. You know, maybe the wind will calm down, whatever, you know.
Keep talking. I'm just going to make sure the computer's good.
And so also, they the deer that was coming out were not coming from a certain direction. So the does that were blowing at me to start with, they saw me coming. Of course, they ran off and blew. But the 8-point come from upwind came in, and I guess my scent was circling, or the wind was circling, or whatever it was doing, and he caught my scent, and he took off. So I knew at that point, I was like, you know, if he does come in right now, I'm not going to outsmart Kicker, because these other little does and these small bucks
have caught you already.
They're outsmarting me already. There ain't no way. You know, Kicker being like he is, and however old Kicker is, there's no way. So, anyways, I sit there and listen to him blow and blow and blow. And, of course, like you said, I'm mad, I'm hot, I'm sick of this. You know, I'm fixing to go to the house. Then I thought to myself, you know, I'm just going to hang out. Whatever happens, happens. Next thing I know, it's probably 10 minutes after that deer stops blowing. I got 3 does coming down out of the hardwoods, coming down in, well, I say the hardwoods, the pine trees, coming down out of the pine trees, coming into the food plot. Now, they're downwind. They come into the power line. When they come into the power line, they start to head down towards me, but when they get down there to me, one of them stops, and, of course, she's doing the head bob. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was busted immediately.
Right then.
And you talk about mad. I was sick of it at that point in time. Of course, she does the head bob. She starts stomping. She takes off, but does not go towards the river. She goes up towards the road, towards the truck, back up on the highlands, away from the river. Well, you know, I'm at this time, I'm just hoping that, you know, that fat raccoon that Talon sees sometimes when he goes out there is coming
every
out,
time.
and then maybe.
No, every time. This happens to him, that happens to me. I see a raccoon, he gets blown out by 4 deer, and somehow a buck shows up. A raccoon shows up when I go.
Yeah, so at this time, I'm like, it's over with. You know, there is nothing, there is absolutely nothing that is telling me that this deer is coming out tonight.
You thinking about getting down at this point?
Yes, yeah. Matter of fact, I almost did get down. I actually put my quiver back on my bow and was going to get down at this point. And I told myself again, I was like, you know, I'm here. I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to relax. I actually got my phone out, started watching some YouTube videos, started watching football.
No,
you know, whatever.
All right, so what time
know?
is it at this point?
This is probably, I think, so the does that come in, the buck that came in was about, I'd say it was about 4:30, 4:45, something like that. So they came in about 10 minutes after that buck. I caught the glimpse of them coming in, so we're looking at about 4:50, maybe 5 o'clock, something, you know, right there at it.
Okay.
And this is still when daylight hours was a lot longer. So I still had till about 6:30, maybe 6:45, something like that. So I still had an hour and a half, maybe a little over that to sit. So, and that also ran through my mind. You know, I was mad, but I also thought, you know, I still got a lot of daylight left. So anyways, time rolls on. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got 6 deer that have blown and blew me out of my stand. I would say probably around 5:05, 5:10, maybe something like that. It was 5 something, but it was after the does had ran off. They were blowing, doing what they were doing in the highlands, not down by the river, and the wind. And I don't know. My experience of hunting, you know, the closer it gets to dark, a lot of the times the wind will die down just a little bit, and then it may pick back up throughout the night. Well, it died down to almost nothing. I mean, it was dead silent. I could hear everything. There was no trees moving from a breeze. There was nothing.
And typically that's when you know it's about to get good.
Exactly. And I thought to myself, you know, the first deer that blew at me didn't bother the second deer that came in. The second deer that blew didn't bother the 3 does that just came in. Then I guess my hope level started rising. I was like, okay, maybe we can make a go of this, you know. So I'm sitting there. I hear something behind me coming from where the 3 does left out and started blowing. I hear something behind me walking. I try to look back. I can't see nothing through the thick brush or whatever. I can't see nothing, but I can hear it walking, and I know it's a deer. It's not something else. So, my head's back, looking, you know, doing whatever, and I'm looking back at that. Well, I catch something coming out of the other side of the power line. Well, it was a doe. The doe comes down. She walks down the hill, comes all the way to me, and this doe did not blow me out. So the wind stopped. Nothing's moving. The doe didn't blow me out. She feeds around a little bit at probably 30 yards. So I'm thinking I'm in the money, you know. This deer's not blowing me out of my stand. I'm good to go. Let's see what happens. I hear a deer behind me walking. I got a doe in front of me. Here comes a buck coming out of the other side of the power lines. He's a spike. He comes out, and we got a 6-point right behind him. Well, that 6-point and that spike comes out. When they come out, they do their thing. I still have something behind me walking. So I make sure that they're not, you know, looking at me, doing their thing. They're content. Like, they have no idea I'm there. So I I move back to try to find out what's walking behind me, you know. I still can't see it, but I know it's a deer. Well, as I'm looking back, I catch a glimpse. While I'm looking back at whatever is walking behind me, I catch a glimpse of something, and I don't know if it's the flicker of an ear or a tail or what, but I know it's a deer. Well, I'm scared to death to look back now because whatever it was behind me, or the deer behind me, cracked the limb. So I know that the deer are looking at that, and I'm looking at that. Now I have no chance to move my head back, because if I do, I have no cover up in them pine trees. I mean, it's like sitting on a power pole. I can't move.
This is when my nose itches, my eye itches,
Absolutely.
my neck starts itching, everything starts itching.
Yeah.
That's when that happens.
Mosquitoes is buzzing.
Yeah, mosquito gets in your
Around
eyeball.
ears, yeah. Can't move.
And this time of year is bad for mosquitoes.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
And especially like
absolutely.
50 degrees while he's out there.
Yep, and around water, there's no
the
doubt.
river.
So I can't move, and keep in mind, this is my first couple of sits in a saddle, so I hadn't gotten the hang of the saddle. Now I do have knee pads on, but at this point in time, when the deer started coming out, I had already relaxed. When all them deer blew me out of my stand, I was no longer standing. My knees were against the tree. Well, my left knee my left leg is completely gone. It's asleep. There is no standing up. If I want to stand up, there is no standing up. I'll fall out, I'll do whatever, but I can't feel my left leg. So I'm trying to enjoy the tingling feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing else I can do.
Telling your mind this not really hurting. That's just in my mind. Yeah.
Just enjoying the pain at the moment. And I'm still looking behind me. And as I'm looking behind me, that deer comes on around, and I see that it's a small buck. And when I say small buck, I'm thinking it was probably like a 4-point. I couldn't really tell, but it never came into the food plot. It stayed behind me the whole time. So I'm watching him out of the corner of my eye, looking behind me still. The deer are still in front of me, but I have no idea if they're looking at me, if they're spooked. I have no idea, but I can't move. Finally, I got sick and tired of staying in the position I was in, and I was like, I got to do something. And he's not out here anyways. I'm turning. So I eased my head back around, and as I eased my head back around, I look out there with I think it was 2 or 3 does and the 6-point and spike, and he's standing in the middle of them.
He had just made his way out there.
He had made his way out there, and I'm assuming because I didn't see him come from behind me, he come from the river. So
what was your face when you saw him out there?
I didn't have a clue.
It looked like somebody just crapped and shoved it in his face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was like, it's game time. That's all I could think at the moment. I was like, it's go time. He's here. While I'm shaking like a leaf,
on the fourth sit, yeah.
And so, anyways, he's standing there, and I know immediately when I turned around, I'd seen him. I looked at his camera pictures, and I knew immediately who it was. And I could see his rack. He's well outside the ears. He's looking away from me. Everything was great. The only problem I had was the way I was sitting in my saddle. I was facing south, and the way he was positioned was the tree's here, and I'm facing the tree. He was positioned off to my left-hand side, and my bow was hanging. I already had my hand on my bow, ready to take it off the rack, but I had so many deer there at 30 yards, I can't move.
You have a lot of eyes on you.
Absolutely. So, and I got deer behind me, so I'm like, I have no idea who's looking at me. I'm looking dead at him. I have no idea what else is happening. Well, next thing I know, I see something out of the corner of my eye doing exactly what that 7-point did earlier that day, coming down the middle of the power line towards me again. Well, I look back, and it's a deer we'd never seen before. It's a tall 8-point. And when I say tall, he's one he was a shooter if Kicker wouldn't have come in that night, he was a shooter too. Never had pictures of this deer. Still to this day, never saw him again after this day.
Remind you, I see a raccoon. This guy has a deer.
I didn't know about
a
the tall
deer
8-point.
heyday. Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah, a deer
so
heyday
the tall 8-point, he's coming in, and I look at him. Matter of fact, he made me take a double look. That's how tall he was. He did not grow out. He was just tall, straight up. So I take a double look at him like,
oh God,
is he running the race with Kicker? Because if Kicker don't give me a shot, if he does give me a shot, I'm all in.
Mm-hmm.
But as I see this tall 8 walking towards me and the other deer that's 30 yards, in front of me, I see Kicker, and I'm looking at both of them out of the corner of my eye. I'm looking at him, looking at him, looking at him, looking at him. And I see Kicker start to walk. And if Kicker would have never done this, if he would have never come parallel with me that day, I'd have never killed him. So Kicker, like I said, the pine tree's here. I'm facing the pine tree. Kicker's here, which actually helped me out a lot with him because he could have caught me moving or anything like that when I was turning my head and all. But the tree was in my way. But I'm looking at him. Here's the pine tree. Here's Kicker. And I'm looking at him on the other side of the pine tree here.
And just in case anybody's listening and not watching, Kicker is at your 10 or 11 o'clock. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
He's at my he's at my 11 o'clock. Probably more at my 11 o'clock than 10 o'clock because if he was out here, I could have unracked my bow and at least tried a shot. But the way he was positioned, I would have had to have swung around. Now, if he was the only one out there, I could have swung around, but with all the eyes on me, there was no way.
Right.
And then I had the deer behind me. I had this 8-point coming up behind me. It was just it was a mess. So I knew I couldn't swing and I couldn't stand up. I'm in a bind. All that's running through my mind is whenever he gives me an opportunity, I've got to take it. And the only opportunity I had was if Kicker walks towards this 8-point that was coming or walks towards the backside of the power lines, that would make him parallel with me, and I could get my bow off the thing, off the hook, and he's parallel with me, and I could shoot him sitting down with my knees against the tree.
He would be at your 9 o'clock at this point.
Yes. He would be directly parallel with me. And sure enough, the 8-point come down, and as I was looking at the 8-point, I was also looking at Kicker out of the corner of my eye, and I see Kicker. He sees the 8-point. The 8-point sees Kicker, And whether or not
8 point kind of helped you.
Oh yeah,
'Cause
absolutely.
it took eyes off of you.
I have no idea. Kicker may have eventually, but now I'm losing daylight.
Meanwhile, when I go hunting, I'm just hoping to see that one
Like,
deer.
who the heck is out there deciding, am I going to shoot this one or this one? Not us. This ain't normal. I promise this ain't normal.
And so, you know, so kicker sees that 8 point, and that 8 point sees kicker. And whether or not they're going to tie up, spar, whatever, I have seen deer the past few days before I saw kicker that day. I did see them spar, so I knew they were sparring a little bit, but 2 rack bucks sparring, that would have been outstanding. So anyways, but I wasn't giving them the chance.
Yeah.
Kicker sees him, he sees kicker. They're walking towards each other. Well, luckily, that deer was just far enough back that kicker got parallel with me before they met. And they had still not met when he got parallel with me. But they were 10 yards, 15 yards from meeting. And like I said, whether or not they were going to tie up, whatever, I don't know. They didn't act aggressive. But he got parallel with me. And as soon as he got parallel with me, I kind of did a small,
Meh.
No, he stopped parallel. I mean, it was just as perfect as you could possibly get. He
Small,
come
like,
parallel,
stand
he
up?
stopped. And I just glanced at all the other deer to see, is anybody looking at me? I don't have time to, look real hard, but I just kind of do a glance over of all the deer. Nothing's looking at me. I draw back, and actually, I don't know if y'all know this, but I have a trail cam video. I have a trail cam video of kicker walking and getting parallel with me.
All right,
And
we need to show that.
And you can see me in the background, draw my bow, and let it fly.
You got to send me that.
You can't
so I
see
can
me
put this
hit the
in
deer.
video.
You can't see me hit the deer.
But you see you draw.
But you can see me draw. When he walks and gets parallel with me, you can see me draw. And as I draw and I let it go, all the deer kind of spook off. But, I mean, it was already slung through him, so it was over with.
So here's
8
perfect
point.
broadside.
Perfect broadside.
I'm
Couldn't
assuming
ask
you
for
drill the
anything
heart.
better.
You usually do.
Yeah, well,
Usually do. Hold on. Whoa, now. This dude's not he's not no big time.
Well, I helped him tune his bow, so he
Yeah,
probably did.
hey, that is true. That is true.
Whatever.
That is true.
This
And
guy-
you fletched them, so,
I
I
did.
mean,
that is
This
right.
guy's,
right.
this
And
guy's
Really,
fine.
you wouldn't be here without me.
This ain't no
Hey.
Dr. Deer guy here.
Hey,
This is his first time
as
in
we
the
talk
woods.
about this deer, I say we. Hey, but
This guy.
but yeah, so he got parallel with me, and I sent one through him. He ran. So when I shot, I did hit him. I did hit him a little back. He was quartering just a tad bit. Now I say he was perfect broadside, but I mean it's very
Quartering
hard
to
to
you
get
or
one.
away, or?
Quartering away. Just slightly quartering away. I would say perfect broadside, but slightly quartering away, which helped me out big time because I hit him a little farther back. But when I hit him a little farther back, it came out on the other side, long, and he was done. So he runs off, and the other 8 point stands out there and hangs out, does his thing. I don't say a word.
The tall one?
The tall one.
This is not a
and-
high fence hunt. We promise. We don't know what happened.
Did he have a
today.
tag in his ear?
Not
or
a high
what?
fence. Yeah. I mean, by
He had-
the way, after this, 8 point has never been seen again. But
He did,
out there in the plot with him while he shoots 3 deer.
For
5
some
of them blow
reason,
him
the
off.
8 point, the tall 8 point did have a spray painted number on the side. I don't know if it was the
A
neighbors
racing
feeding it or whatever.
Was it a
had
guy's cow?
It had something that said,
Cow with like a reindeer
please don't
thing on
shoot.
it.
My name is Bob,
Yeah.
But no, so yeah, that 8 point hung out after I shot kicker. Kicker takes off running. All the does spread out. They go about their business, and that big 8 point, he stays. But he is looking. He's not just willy nilly out there. He's looking. He's spooked. He heard it and everything. He's nervous. Finally, he walks off. He goes on about his business, and the 6 point had ran on up the power line a little bit, and I let him get on out of there. I didn't want to start coming down before all the deer cleared out.
Mm-hmm.
So, but as I was sitting there, I did start doubting myself. I was like, did I make a good shot or did
hate
I
that
not?
feeling.
Even though I thought I did, I was like, I drilled him. I was like, did I make a good shot or did I not?
Oh, yeah, we know why you hate that feeling.
Oh,
You
yeah.
felt it for a little while.
So,
Future
and
story.
I
Yeah,
even,
future story.
after I shot him, he runs off into the woods. He didn't go 30 yards after I blood trailed him, but at that time I didn't know that. But I did hear him crash. I knew that for a fact. I heard him crash. I heard him kicking around in the bushes. Had to have been him. All the rest of the deer, they got the heck out of the county. So I heard him crash, but I'm still doubting myself. I get down,
Literally.
I get to my arrow, and my arrow is just like as bright red as you can possibly get. I mean,
So good blood.
perfect hit. So, anyways, I give him about 45 minutes, and I get back down there to my area, and I blood trail him, and he's probably 30 yards off the power line, piled up. And anyways, I was ecstatic. The only bad thing about Kicker was his G2 was broke off, which made me sick. To be honest with you,
It had to have happened recently, right before you killed him.
I mean,
right?
I think so. It was a clean break. I mean, when I looked at it, it wasn't dirty.
I just want to think you showed me pictures
probably
like 2
shot
days
it-
before,
Yeah,
and it was not broke.
yeah, he was fine.
He probably shot it and it ran off in the woods, hit a limb or something, snapped off right before. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
That's the only thing bad he had going for him. And
Yeah.
the whole hunt had everything else going great.
When I say
ag-
that, meaning like you got
Right.
pictures of it, so like you can recreate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the taxiderm. The taxidermist that I'm using is going to fix that G2. But the only bad thing is when they score him, they're not going to be able to do an official score with that G2 on. It's going to have to be with that G2 broke off. But you know, talking to my taxidermist, who is an official scorer, he thinks he may go 125, maybe 126. But
With the G2 broken off?
with the G2 broken off, but I have my doubts, just because that's going to take a lot of inches off the bone. But if he does, that'll be in the Pope and Young record book.
That will be. That's
It'll
what I
be
was
in the
about to
Pope and
say.
Young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pope and Young, yeah.
With a broken
But-
G2.
Yes.
That is crazy. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
Broken G2 in the
Oh,
Pope and
God.
Young. And
But-
we'll mention the taxidermy some other time. We got to talk to him first once we get a little more.
Yeah, get a
with
little
all
more
our
information.
with all our followers right now, you know, we got to
Let's
wait.
make sure he does a good
Make
job.
sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Let's make sure you get your deer back.
Before we call them out,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
But we'll give them a shout out when the time comes. But so one of the cool things is we named him Kicker because of one of the angles on the pictures and all. We prematurely named him that. But so what we thought was a kicker was actually when I first saw him, I thought was a split brow tine. So we actually got this deer all completely wrong, but nobody knew. We named him Kicker because we thought he had a kicker. He didn't have a kicker. I thought he was a split brow tine. He wasn't a split brow tine. When I actually retrieved him and got him back out, and I actually started looking at him, we started taking the pictures and all that, we actually looked hard enough that the kicker that comes off of what we thought was a not the kicker, but the split that comes off of the brow tine, what we thought was a split brow tine is actually a second main beam. It don't connect. So that coming out of his head don't connect with the main beam coming out of his, his main beam. They're not connected. There's a small gap there that makes that one a second main beam, which may help me. I don't know. I'm not an official scorer, but may help me in the scoring process because you may. I don't know. I just don't know about the scoring process or anything like that. But I don't know if that'll help me. But it's about probably 8 inches, maybe second main beam. So we'll see.
I know official, like they have the gross score and then there's a net score. They have deductions and stuff, but like, I don't know, just for talking with buddies and stuff, I would 110% go with that gross score.
Yeah.
Count it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know, is it net or gross that goes into the Pope and
Don't
Young?
look at me.
I think,
They don't score
I could be
Spurs.
wrong, but I'm assuming it would have to be net
Yeah,
once the deductions go in.
right.
I don't really agree with that, but
And I think the deer, if I'm not bad mistaken, has to be dried. It has to go through a drying process. It can't just be killed on the hoof, immediately
That makes
scored.
sense, does it? You
And
would think
then-
they'd score it exactly how the deer just was killed, what
Yeah.
it was.
It's got to go through a drying process. So
I had heard that. I don't know how much though. Like, there's actually there
gotta
can't be much
It's
difference.
got to be centimeters. I wouldn't think it'd be inches.
No.
It's got to be very, very little. But yeah, so that's the story of Kicker, and man, it was actually the best, worst day of hunting that I've ever had. I guess I would, to be honest with you, I would say in my whole life. I mean, I've never had that many deer blow at me and run off, some in the direction that he came from, and still have a successful hunt and everything, pan out the way it panned out. I couldn't tell you.
And it's funny too because I know everybody's been in that situation where they have deer blowing at them and get irritated,
Right.
may leave or whatever, think their hunt's ruined.
Oh yeah.
But you did tell me that because I remember All I knew about this deer was you told me that you had it on camera. You showed me a picture of it, and you called me, or we were texting or something. I forget, and you said I killed that 9-point. And I thought you were joking, because the last I heard, he was only coming out at night.
Right.
I didn't even know you were getting him coming out during the day.
Oh, well,
But-
to be honest with you, we never once, out of the 3 pictures we got on the trail camera, none of them were during the day. The first day he come out, I was sitting in the tree.
Oh, that is right. You said the
Yep.
cold front was coming through, so you were hoping they would. That is right.
That's right. The
Okay.
first day he come out and we got pictures of him in the daylight hours, I was sitting I just happened to be in the tree the day he came out.
So, for it is in centimeters, the measurements.
So it actually shrinks in
And it
centimeters.
says to get the gross score, add the inside spread, the beam lengths, all the G-point lengths, and all H circumference measurements. And then that'll be your score.
So that's your
it is
thickness on the main
centimeters.
beam.
Yeah. So that's your, and then finally subtract the total deduction number from the gross score to get the final or net score.
So I guess the biggest thing that would hurt you is the deduction on that G2.
Yes, probably.
Dang. What if you get like right off of it of being in
I don't
the
know.
Papillon?
What if it's
We'll see.
124 and 6/8?
I'll be sick. I'll be sick. Hey,
Did you say it's 125 for Pope and Young? Isn't that right?
125, I believe. Yep, 125. Yep.
And all right, so going back to how we started, how we opened up the podcast, you know, people in the Midwest may hear this and be like, wow, struggling to get to 125.
Right.
But like, again, that's a great deer.
Oh yeah,
In this area.
absolutely. To elaborate on that, my dad has been a deer hunter pretty much, I would say, since he was 15, 16 years old, and he's 56, 50, no, he's 58 now, I think.
Yeah.
But he's been a deer hunter his whole life. He's got 4 deer on the wall, and my dad is not he's not a guy that just kills anything and everything. I mean, they got to be a good
No,
deer
yeah.
for him to kill it.
He don't even care shooting does.
Right, and he's never left out of Alabama deer hunting. Well, he may have went to the Georgia side, you know, in November, you know, hunting public land. But so Dad has hunted mostly South Alabama his whole life. He's got 4 deer mounted in our house, and 2 of them deer are pushing. Well, I know 2 of them deer. He got them scored, and I think 2 of them was 132 and some change, and 1 of them was 130 and some change. And when you put them deer up, and I know people, like you said, from the Midwest up north, they're thinking, what in the world? You know,
Yeah.
like these guys got 130s on the wall, and we're hanging out here with 150s, 160s, 70s, and 200s.
Another great example is the deer you killed last year. I'm assuming we'll talk about it at some point. 200 pounds.
Yes.
All right.
208 pounds. Yeah.
208 pounds.
208 pounds.
That's massive.
Absolutely.
All right. And I don't know what he scored, but
Yeah.
it has to be in the same ballpark, maybe a little less.
I would say probably maybe pushing 120 at
Yeah.
the most.
And, like,
At
that
the
is a
most.
mature
And he's
deer.
a 9-point. And he had no back teeth. They pulled.
So he was old as dirt.
He had no back teeth. He was limping. He was 208 pounds, rubbing every tree in that place. I mean, just doing his thing. And yeah, I mean,
Just no bigger than 120.
yeah, 120 at the most, if 120. Yeah, so I mean that's what we're dealing with around here. You know, we're not. You know, I believe there was a fella. I actually wouldn't mind talking to him one day about it, but he actually killed a 160 class down on public land, down at the Geneva State Forest.
Oh, this was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was last year or the year before. I think it was last year.
It was last
But
year.
fine deer, absolutely good, just a great deer for anywhere. But when he killed that deer, you know, we're looking at that deer like most people look at a 200-inch deer.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, what in the world? Where'd you kill that at? You know, and
That's,
You know?
that's a deer that wildlife biologists in the area want to know. I can't talk. Want to know where he killed that deer at so
Yeah.
that they can learn more about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
right.
And I guess we do have, like, even though the average is what we're talking about here, you know, I guess too it is safe to say we have very small pockets
Right.
of good genetics. Like we could go
Yeah.
to Troy,
Right.
Oh,
and the
yeah.
deer are going to be bigger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But for the most part, like,
We're stuck with what we got.
exactly.
Yeah, ain't no doubt.
Yeah, we try to make the best of what we got and go from there. One day, I wouldn't mind trying to kill one of the big ones somewhere else, maybe outside of Alabama.
Yeah.
But, and two, you know, I was listening to somebody the other day. It was another podcast. I believe it was the guys hunting public. And they were talking to the guys from the University of Mississippi State,
Oh, yeah.
the Deer Research Lab. And, you know, around here, a lot of people, they hunt the fields, they hunt the food plots. They'll get in a pocket of woods that are open, hardwoods that are open, you know. You can see, you know, a good ways. And it looks very, I guess you could say, deery. You know, I can see in my head a buck running through here, running does. But one thing that they asked the people that the fella from the research lab was, you know, do deer change their tactics when hunting season starts? And they said within 3 days, deer start acting different.
Yeah.
And they changed their tortuosity. And the guys
Good
was-
job. Good job. That's a big
Yeah.
word.
Hey, I studied that one.
Look,
I studied
he
that
read it
one.
before the podcast.
He was on the way here practicing.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I was in there in the truck. We were on the way over here, and I was like, Tor.
I know the podcast you're talking about, though.
Well, you made a
because
song about it.
I don't know the guy's name. I think it's Zach from the Hunting Public. He was
Yeah.
struggling with it.
Yes,
Tortuosity?
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Hey.
Which means,
And-
if I remember it right, correct me, which means they're still moving the same amount, but it's not as big of an area.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah,
if they travel
I mean-
a mile, they're still traveling a mile, but it's
Right.
probably within this thicket that hunters are not
Right.
pressuring them.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, for example, and this is the example that they gave to Zach, I believe, was, you know, a deer still is going to move
Hit the
and
mic.
I
travel.
did. I
and
hit
if
the
a
mic.
deer,
Knew it this. Hit the mic.
rookie mistake.
Yeah, my fault.
But yeah, if a deer's going to travel, he's going to get to where he wants to go. And he kind of explained it to him as like if you take a football field and you walk a straight line across that football field, so you're walking in a straight line, everything's good, everything's great. But tortuosity would be going from one side of the field to the next, or going from one object, you know, obstacle to the next, going back and forth to get to the same location, but you're just not going in a straight line, taking the same path. It's different paths, and they're staying in the thick, screened areas where they're more hidden.
Yeah, he's taking the long way instead of the
Exactly.
easy way,
Yeah.
and he's staying
Exactly.
hidden the whole time.
Yeah,
that's
not
right.
getting killed.
Yeah.
And so that's
He's
why-
choosing security over
Yeah.
convenience
Absolutely.
of point A to point B.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And which is
Path of
why a
least
lot of the
resistance.
times, you know, people around here and really, I guess you could say anywhere, they're not seeing big bucks. And another thing them guys said is big bucks, they move. You know, they're not just coming out at night. They're not nocturnal.
Yeah,
They're not
yeah.
nocturnal. They
moving
may
in the day.
they may move at night. You may get pictures at night, but somewhere wherever that deer's at, he's eating and he's moving.
Yeah.
You just have to be where that deer's
Where he's
at.
moving, yeah.
Right, and that's in the thick stuff, which people don't want to trudge through there. And a lot of the times, if you do trudge through there, you blow them out.
Mm-hmm.
So they're
What
a
I've
little
noticed
smarter
too is
than what
if
you
you
think.
are in there, you can only see like 20, 30 yards at the most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you feel
Gotta have it
very
close.
confined and
And-
very
yeah.
like you're limiting yourself.
Exactly. And most hunters think, you
And it's a
know, I
mind
need to
game.
see 100 yards to be able to see as many deer as possible. When truly, if you sat in that where I could see 25 yards in front of me,
There's a better chance.
you have a
you'd see
better
big-
chance of
And
a,
now look, I
of a
said
more
that like I know
mature
what I'm
buck.
talking about but I struggle with that.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah,
hard.
everybody does.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's like in my mind, I know that probably I should sit right there in the
Right.
thick stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can see further right here.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And during the rut, maybe that's a better tactic. I don't know.
yeah,
But
I mean, yeah,
it's hard.
the problem with the 25 thing and my problem with that is if he don't come right here, I'm not going to see him.
Yeah.
But if I put 20 sits in right here, I have a better chance maybe of killing a mature buck than sitting on that food plot
Then
20
sits out there.
And
yeah.
I'm shooting, you know, a basket rack 8 or I'm shooting a basket rack 6 point when this monster is staying in this thick stuff.
Yeah.
Or the one that I have on camera that's coming out at night, he's in this thick stuff moving during the day all day. I'm never in that thick stuff to see if he really is moving or if he's not. I'm never in there.
Yeah.
Just because of that. I don't want to feel limited. I want to be able to see. I want to be able to,
Yeah.
have that peace of mind, But yeah, that's I don't know, the story of kicker, and I do believe that I do believe that we have bucks down there that are shooters. We had that one that we hadn't seen, the Big 8. I do believe he's probably still around, but we got the Big 8 before we ever started going back in there for this hunting season. We went down, we put bait out, we did stuff like that. We put corn out and all that to get inventory, and that was before we started going in and out of there, going hunting every day.
To get inventory.
Yeah, of all the deer that we have, maybe.
Is that the right word for that? Inventory?
Yeah.
Making sure. Didn't want to sound stupid or anything. Got to make sure on the podcast. That way, we don't sound stupid or anything. I was thinking like maybe, get intelligence or something like that.
Get intel.
Get intel. I was thinking maybe, get intel, not inventory. I thought inventory was like, what, we're picking up the corn and taking it home with us.
So, yeah, to get intel or inventory.
Yeah.
So, that was before, we got the Big 8 before we started going in, hunting, doing whatever we were doing.
So you reckon that could just be his summer area?
Maybe,
He'll be back?
Maybe it could be a summer area. He could be, 10 miles off now, or he could be sitting around there in his tortuosity.
Has changed.
Has changed. Yeah, maybe he's went to that tortuosity and where he's staying in the thick stuff and he's just not coming out because he senses more activity on our property than has been all year long. So I'm a firm believer in that could be the case. And hopefully in January when the rut hits and we're going hot and heavy, he'll make another appearance and we'll be sitting in the tree
Does he have a name?
waiting on him.
Does he have a name? Big 8?
Just a Big 8.
The Big 8.
Mm-hmm.
We may rename him because I think there's 100 people out there with the Big 8.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the only thing we
rename.
named him was this is a Big 8 when we first saw him.
Well,
so we
I have
named
no
him
We like
doubt
to come
that
up
we
with
will.
names for our stuff. We like to come up with names for our deer just so we can keep
Just
up
about
with it.
everybody does.
Some
mean,
people
not
think it's
everybody-
funny and like ridiculous, but
Yeah.
it really is
Yeah.
easier.
Just
Well,
about everybody
because-
does not do
Yeah.
that.
yeah.
Because
Well,
I have a lot of friends that do not do that. So, I'm just saying, like,
I just know Greeley,
Mm.
my wife, whenever I started naming it, she was looking at me funny, like,
yeah, most people
like
look at you.
why are you naming that deer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier to say, I killed flatbread.
Yeah,
Or,
instead of
hey,
having
I
to
killed
explain.
that
That one
big
deer
8
that was
point that
kinda
was
wide.
wide that I saw
Yeah.
last year with the little
Yeah.
tiny brow tines, but now he's
Yeah.
got bigger. Anyway,
especially
Yeah.
explaining it to a wife that's like, what are brow tines? What are
Yeah.
G2s?
yeah.
What are you talking about? What's the main beam? Well,
Yeah.
I killed
It's just a whole lot
flatbread.
easier
Oh,
to say the
okay.
name. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and two, I think, naming your deer, I don't know, it kind of puts a trademark on them.
Yeah.
Like if I have the kicker, I'm after the kicker.
Yeah.
Or I'm after the Big 8. And then two, in my opinion, this is just me, I feel attached
Yeah,
to
like
that deer
connection.
until I kill him. And when I do kill him, I'm excited. Don't get me wrong. I'm really excited. But I'm not somebody that just loves to kill animals like a crazy person, just kill animals just to watch them die. I do enjoy, the sport of it, but I don't just kill them just to watch them get killed. So I do feel a connection with that deer. When I finally close the story on him, I do feel, I guess you could say it's a bittersweet moment.
Yeah.
It's
You
like,
get a lot
man,
of
it's over
gratification out
with.
of it, though.
Yeah.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And it's a memory that I get to keep forever.
But when you target one deer like that, I mean, when you do get them, it's an even better feeling,
Absolutely.
even
Yep.
because you feel like you've had even more success.
Yeah, right. I closed the story on a deer that I've been chasing, so
Yeah.
it feels like, more success. But then also, in my opinion, it's kind of like a bittersweet moment where it's over with. So I'm moving on to the next deer, but, I
Which
enjoyed.
I do think too, though, the deer doesn't have to be huge to do
Right.
that. Like
No.
it could be a deer that you just,
Yeah.
he's got a cool
Absolutely.
rack and I want to take him.
We had
100%.
like a little 3-point. We called like, what was it, chocolate or something like that. It was like a little dark brown.
Yeah.
We called chocolate came in today. I mean, we just any of them.
Absolutely. And everybody's trophy's different, and I know the guys, that are already doing podcasts and already, high up on the rankings of hunting and stuff. They're already they'll tell you that, a 200-inch deer is not something that you may be able to kill, but get out there and go hunting and kill something, that you would be proud of. And if a spike is something you're proud of, as far as I'm concerned, be
Kill a
proud of
spike,
it.
yeah.
Absolutely, be proud of it. Absolutely.
Well, is there anything else that we should say about Kicker or anything about the podcast in general?
I think that's it. Maybe later on in our podcast, we'll tell the score. When
Okay.
I find
Yeah,
out
when
what the
you find
score
out.
is, we'll reveal the score. Anybody that's listening, fingers crossed that he's at least 125 dried, maybe at least 125, but I have my doubts. But we'll reveal that in one of our other podcasts in the future. But other than that, that's all I got for Kicker, and maybe we'll revisit it whenever the time comes.
I'm looking forward to doing this
Yeah.
again. This is
And
fun.
Yeah.
we're not doing this like to be big or get big or anything like that. We're just kind of doing it to tell our
fun.
own stories. Have fun.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Whatever
It's
happens,
not,
happens.
Yeah. Not trying to.
Yeah.
And I told you this earlier, like we've had fun just getting ready to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And it was really
Yeah,
fun
it is.
talking about it.
I enjoy it.
Well, it's
It was a little rough
it's been
start.
a good time. Yeah, a little rough.
Start
A little rough, but
bloopers coming.
that's right. That's right. But yeah, man, that's all I got. That's all I got. So I think we've been here. I don't know how long it's been to be
I
honest.
have
no
I think we
idea.
got lost in
Yeah.
conversation and took off with it.
We were hoping for an hour, and I think we have surpassed that.
I think so.
Cue the George Strait. Was in the video. Cue it.